Hey fellow babies, welcome back to this week's Pachter Factor from SIFTD.net, and I hope you're a Patreon patron at $2 a month. That helps Shane keep this show going. Otherwise, I would have to put on a suit, go to the office, and do this through Skype or something. But Shane comes to my house, sets up these nice lights, and we can do an episode from here. So thanks for joining us. If you're not a Patreon supporter, and you're watching on YouTube, please follow me on Twitter at a minimum, at Michael Pachter, and comment. Let me know what you think. If you want me to change it up, let me know. The worst that happens is I consider you a racist and I mute you. Let's get to the questions. This week's first question from Patreon, from Dan Burke. PlayStation VR seems to be doing well, and there are many more games from larger development studios on the horizon. As an early adopter who's been happy with the purchase thus far, I'm still concerned that a next-gen version will leave my headset obsolete too soon. Do you see the life cycle for PSVR as a peripheral that will span PS4 to PS5? Why don't you shoot in your office anymore, miss of you? I don't go to the office anymore, so that's the real reason. I mean, come on, if you can work from home or drive 30 miles each way to go to an office, I have 2 hours a day more of free time. So I actually work about an hour longer, and I commute 2 hours less, so I have an hour more, in my case, of sleep. I actually work much later than I used to, and I sleep an hour more, so I'm happier, and I stay up an hour later. As far as PSVR, I don't know technologically if the existing PSVR will be supported by PS5, but my bias is they'll make it supportable, so I think that they'll make the PS5 so that the existing PSVR people aren't, left out in the dark. The biggest problem I have with it is the cords are too short, and I would rather have no cords. I mean, so if there was such a thing as wireless VR, I'd be happy. My headset, the way you hook it up, I have to hook it up to the PlayStation, which I have kind of built into the wall, and I have to sit in a chair 5 feet or so, 6 feet away from the PlayStation to use it. I can't sit on the couch in the room where my PlayStation is because the cord's not long enough. So I would have been in heaven if they put a 20-foot cord on the thing instead of a 6 or 8 foot cord. So those are the kind of fixes. Ultimately, it's going to be wireless. I mean, I don't know what's involved technologically to make it wireless, but I expect that. And agreed, I mean, it's chicken and egg. The more PSVRs are out there, the bigger the addressable market, which means developers are going to chase it with more and more games. So yeah, every year the games are going to get better. I thought Resident Evil 7 was really good. Too scary to play in VR. I mean, it was actually too scary. It was confining. I was sweating. I was freaking out. So yes, I mean, I think you're going to get more and more of those experiences. But the answer is you're going to want to get the next generation because it'll be higher def, and it's going to ultimately be wireless. And if you're not tethered, that'll be a great experience. As soon as they have a wireless one, that's the one I'm getting, because I would love to sit on my couch and play these games in a more comfortable area. At least I could hug a pillow or something when playing Resident Evil. Okay, our next question this week from SIFTD, from the Stand user. Uncharted Lost Legacy was released August 22nd for $40. 6 weeks later, it's on sale for $30. Similar early discounts have occurred in the past couple of years. Can you explain the strategy behind early discounts like these? What are the pros and cons of putting a new game on sale soon after its initial release? Sale prices typically signal low demand. So, if you don't have enough demand at 40, you cut the price to 30. Because it's a PlayStation first-party title, they can afford to do that. It's because the manufacturing cost is literally about $1. So they can do whatever they want. I would guess they didn't sell enough copies. I mean, I think it comes down to that. I don't know what the norm is for an Uncharted game, but I would guess they sell between 8 and 10 million units. I'm guessing this one sold half that. I think that's why they discounted it, and nothing more. A lot of it, though, is you started out at 40 because it's kind of considered a half step between Uncharted 4 and I don't know if there's going to be an Uncharted 5, but between Uncharted 4 and the next one. And I think maybe that was the problem, that they made the game kind of a in between, or between a full-fledged game and a half game. That was kind of what happened with Saints Row, if you remember, and I can't remember if it was the third, but whatever the Saints Row game when THQ went bankrupt. They were going to do a half-step Saints Row for like $40, and then Jason Rubin came in, coincidentally founder of Naughty Dog, and Jason said, no, we're going to do a full-fledged $60 game and beef it up and do more. And THQ went bankrupt before they got it out. So Deep Silver bought them and ended up bought the franchise, ended up releasing it. It was a great game. So I think maybe this is more a reflection on these kind of half-step games that aren't really a full-fledged experience. I haven't played it. I actually have it, and I haven't played it yet. I don't know. Is it super short? I mean, I don't even know. Shorter than Uncharted, yeah. So that's the problem, and part of it also is Naughty Dog spoiled us, because the Uncharted 1, 2, 3, 4 were such big, fun games that went forever. You could easily play an Uncharted game for 25 or 30 hours, and again, so now probably anything less than that is too short. But they're a victim of their success, because they really make great games. And so they've kind of created a huge expectation among gamers that everything that they release at 60 will be full value. My guess is it's half the value, and so now it's half the price at $30, and it's that simple. Okay, our next question from Kevin on the SIFTD site. If you had to work for a game developer, which one would it be? Without question, I would work for Insomniac, because I think Ted Price is the nicest man I've ever met. I've never met anybody who worked there who didn't absolutely love the guy. My second choice would probably be Respawn, although I have met people who think Vince is kind of a dick. I think he's like the most wonderful guy I've ever met. And if I was willing to move, those are both in LA, that's why I picked those two, and I live here. If I were to move, oh my God, would I work for NetherRealm. Ed Boon is the nicest person who ever walked the planet. Now, I could probably do this for another 2 hours, because honestly, I would say as a class of people, the guys who run studios are just the nicest guys ever. It's like there are no game developers I've met. Pete Parsons, God, all of them. They're such nice people. Cliff Bleszinski, I mean, they're just the best guys ever. And again, some guys, I've heard that he's a taskmaster, but Ken Levine, what a nice guy. So I think some of these guys are perfectionists. The only guys I would probably never work for, and I'm safe because they would never have me, are the Housers, the Rockstar guys. They're a little too perfectionist for me. Like, you should be allowed to make mistakes, and I think people who work there, they don't make mistakes, but I think they kind of, live in fear of ever screwing something up. But my God, as a group, what a great industry. And what's cool about it is that developers are pretty much in this business because they love delighting their fans, and that's what motivates them. It's not money. And the guys who delight the most fans make the most money, so it works out. So, God, what a great question. Yeah, and by the way, you said if I had to work for a game developer, I would die and go to heaven if I could work for a game developer. There's so many great ones. But my two favorite on the planet for people are Bonnie Ross and Kiki Wolfkill. They are the two sweetest people I've ever met. I love them. I hope you two are doing well. I haven't seen either one of you in months, but hi, girls. My good buddy Deep Space. We got a question from the SIFTD site from Deep Space, or Diep, but I love him. Deep Space, he's the best. Destiny and Call of Duty exclusive deals have worked out really well for the PS4. Why did Microsoft let these programs slip away when they did so well on Xbox 360? Surely it could have outbid Sony if it wanted to. The glue there, the shift is that Dennis Durkin, who was the chief operating officer for Xbox, left Microsoft and went to work for Activision as CFO. So I'm going to blame Dennis. I think Dennis went to Activision Dennis absolutely knew the deal that Microsoft had with Activision. And then he went to Activision, and he obviously knew what Activision was willing to sell stuff for because he was chief financial officer. And my guess is that Dennis did what a prudent Activision CFO would do. He put it out for bid, and he let Sony know what they needed to spend. And I think Sony didn't like being behind Microsoft early on in the Xbox 360 PS3 cycle. And I think Sony was determined to crush Microsoft in the Xbox One PS4 cycle. And I think Dennis said, here's a number, you do it and we'll do the deal with you. And they did it. So I think it came down to that. Microsoft can outbid anybody, but let's give Satya Nadella and Phil Spencer the props that they're due. They're not going to overspend. And we had a question last week about, or 2 weeks ago, about Andrew House. You know, why is it that Sony PlayStation isn't as profitable as maybe it could be? Possibly because they're paying more for deals like Destiny and Call of Duty exclusives, you know, early exclusives. So, you know, that's kind of that's the table stakes to winning the console war. And maybe, you know, Andy House approved those deals, and maybe that got him in trouble. But my guess is Activision's not crying about going with Sony instead of Microsoft. My guess is Activision's getting paid plenty. If you are following on Patreon as a Patreon patron, SIFTD thanks you, Shane thanks you. He can keep paying for these expensive trips out to my house and all this camera equipment and lighting equipment and sound equipment. If you're watching on YouTube, I insist that you follow me on Twitter at Michael Pachter, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us on Pachter Factor.